All right, hi everyone. I'm Eric Weber. I am currently a data scientist at CoreLogic in Southern California. I do a lot of other things in addition to that, but in general, my current role is focused on a mixture of leadership in the data science space as well as technical execution. So CoreLogic, for those of you who don't know about it, it focuses on property data, criminal data, that kind of serves as the back end for a lot of when you do a housing search, when you look for information about housing, when realtors use it, we kind of serve as that company that provides that information. Before this, I was at LinkedIn. I was in a healthcare company. I've been in a lot of different roles. Prior to that, I was in academia, so I taught and did research for about 5 years before I jumped into the industry space. So I also, in addition to the professional roles, I recently joined a startup called Method Data Science. So this is a partnership between Beau Walker and I, and it focuses on getting early career data scientists formal experience in doing data science. So I'll jump into talking a little bit more about that later if we want. But in general, that's who I am, and looking forward to the rest of the conversation.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric, for making time to be on Humans of Data Science, and welcome. Um,
Thanks.
so before we get into talking more about method data science, I do want to hear your story about how you decided to become a data scientist, like kind of what inspired you to go down this path.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I can point to a specific conversation I had with my dad in like 2014, 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. It was literally the first time I heard anyone ever say something about like big data. So my dad was at IBM and United Healthcare for a long time, two companies that were kind of initial pioneers in this space. He's also retiring today, so if he watches this, like, I'm jealous, Dad, you're leaving the workforce. So I really hadn't thought much about big data, data science before that point in time. I had a skill set developed that focused on statistics and mathematics, and I really enjoyed doing it. It wasn't something that had been in my purview until then, but as I started reading about it, started reading about use cases, and I thought I have a lot of the skills that fit in this space. What I don't necessarily have is experience with big data platforms.
Mhm.
And I also knew I needed more experience on the business side. So that sort of pushed me into the space where I started taking courses. I joined a master's program that focused on analytics. And that was kind of my path into it. So it was that conversation. And then I was like, oh, I should read more about this. So, and then I started realizing this is a good fit. This is what I enjoy doing. And I guess the rest is kind of just taken off from there.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. So your dad's retiring today?
He is today. He probably just walked out of his office for the last time, so I'm sure he's
Congratulations.
very disappointed right now, right?
Very cool. All right, so the next question I had for you was, I think a few weeks ago you posted something on LinkedIn about ROI and setting the context for data science and kind of the importance of that. So can you just talk a bit more about why it's important to set the context and why we need to think about ROI?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this conversation could be much longer, but in general, I find context and ROI to be extremely important because it helps the rest of the business understand what value data science can deliver. So I think it's important to consider that when we talk about data science amongst data scientists, we tend to speak similar languages. We tend to use terms, and we tend to believe that, yes, data science, of course, it unlocks value for the business. It's very easy to speak back and forth. But it's really important to remember that a lot of other parts of the business only hear words associated with data science. Like they hear about machine learning, they hear about artificial intelligence, but you may as well say the word magic to them, right? For all that it means. So it's really important to be able to dig deep and understand what is the context of the problems that the business is dealing with. Being able to understand to be able to understand where you can actually unlock and deliver value.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, to be able to speak their language, you really have to understand what's important to them. So what outcome measures matter? Where is the value you can bring to them? Perhaps it's in terms of revenue, perhaps it's in terms of cost savings, perhaps you're creating efficiencies. In any case, being able to define what that outcome measure is and how you can have an impact on it as a data scientist is really important. It's something that I think that gets lost in a lot of the technical conversations. And how do you get into data science? Getting into data science also requires a really solid perspective on how a business makes money, and how you can be useful in that endeavor.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I wanted to ask, is this something that you're hoping to address as part of the method data science? Maybe this is a good opportunity to introduce people to method data science in case they haven't heard of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you for the chance to just talk about it a little bit. But method data science is something that I mentioned that Beau Walker and I have partnered on, and we're starting at the end of September. Our third cohort of consultants will basically go through the program. The idea here is that we have partnered with a lot of businesses and clients who are looking to get into the data science space, but they're not necessarily ready to make a gigantic investment in it. So they have, and this is true of many, many companies, they're not ready to jump fully in, but they also need to have, so they provide a really good context for people to get experience, right? To work on these real critical business problems in a way that allows the consultants / students to really get more experience in what it means to work in a business. It also gives the business a chance to say, all right, what can data science do for us?
Right.
And the goal with Method is to really accelerate that process to help businesses get into the data science space faster, and also be more confident when they make that investment. So method data science, I think something Beau and I emphasize in all our conversations with the teams we have, is that until you really understand the business problem, you can't really do the data science effectively. If you don't understand what the business metrics are, what outcomes matter, what the most key drivers of success are, and so that's something that comes up every time. So when we meet with new businesses who are interested in working with us, we have these similar conversations. So like, what can you do for our bottom line, for these key metrics for us? They don't really care at the end of the day how it gets done.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear us talk about neural networks. Some people do, but like in general, they don't really want to hear that in-depth conversation. They just want to know, what is it going to be able to do for me?
Great. And how long are the programs? I know you said you're starting your third cohort at the end of September.
The cohorts right now are 12 weeks.
Okay.
So when people join, they are put into, we organize teams after we go through an application process, decide on accepting a particular part of the applicants, organizing the teams, and then we really dig in. We have two major projects that the teams work through to give them sort of real on-the-ground experience. And so that's over the course of those 12 weeks. These are real client projects that have been posed to us, and because they're very real, the data is also very real, meaning it's messy, meaning the problems are sometimes ill-formed. And I think it's a great learning experience that you're often going to be operating off of incomplete information, and understanding how to work in the face of uncertainty and incomplete information, I think is probably the best lesson that you get as you go through a program like this.
Yeah, I think you guys are really closing one of the bigger gaps in the space where people graduate some kind of program that they've used, clean data, and then they go to a client and then they're like, what?
Yeah, like, wait, what? You didn't give me something that works well? No.
I know, right? My model doesn't work here. So how big are the groups that you're taking on?
So our cohorts going forward, we're targeting about 30 to 35 people per cohort.
Okay.
We had a cohort go through that was a lot larger, and I think it it makes it a little more difficult to make sure that we're keeping up with everybody. So we're going to target roughly 10 to 12 teams for each cohort over the course of those 12 weeks. And basically a new cohort will kick off every couple of months. That's our targeted pace right now. And of course, because this is new, things change a little bit, or a lot of bit, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, we're looking forward to getting to learn along with everyone else too. And it's not just a training program. It's really, we're looking to develop a community long-term where we look for mentors to come back to the community and continue to work with us even after they've gone through the program.
Great. Well, Eric, I have one last question for you, and I don't know if you have an answer because it's about what you like to do in your spare time, and I'm afraid you don't have any, but let's go for it. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Oh, I have spare time. Oh, spare time. So, of course, that can be a little more scarce depending on the week and the day, but I love to be outside. So being in Southern California makes that very easy. Being on my bike, being on trails, being by the ocean. I'm not exactly what you would call stable on a surfboard in any way, shape, or form, but at some point I'm hoping that I will be. So I'm looking forward to that point in time when I can do some of the things that Southern Californians do seemingly from birth. But in general, you'll just find me outside in the sunshine because, you know, a lot of our work is done indoors, a lot of work done in meetings. It's nice to get outside and just breathe.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for being on Humans of Data Science.
Thank you, Kate.